Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into something pretty immense, a topic that pulls us towards the stars, but maybe surprisingly also anchors us firmly right here on Earth. We're drawing inspiration from some really thought-provoking audio excerpts today. They come from the Space and Astronomy Podcast, specifically a segment they titled Earth or Stars, Humanity's Cosmic Dilemma. And
Hmm.
it's not just, navel gazing. It poses what feels like one of the most urgent ethical questions we face right now. Yeah, the core question they put forward is really direct. It's basically, should we be pouring, massive resources into colonizing other planets? Well, Earth is dealing with so much. Escalating climate change, poverty that just persists, deep inequality. It's a lot. So, is heading for the stars a necessary step for our survival, a vital next chapter? Or is it perhaps a huge distraction from the problems we absolutely need to fix right here, right now? It really forces you to think about our priorities, doesn't it? Where should the focus, the money, the effort really go?
Exactly. And that's what we want to get into today. Our mission, if you like, for this deep dive is to really explore all sides of this. We'll look at the science, sure, but also the philosophy, the ethics, the potential futures wrapped up in this huge question. And importantly, we're aiming for impartiality here. We're not here to push one side. No, the goal is to help you, our listener, navigate these really complex arguments, see the different viewpoints, the nuances, and hopefully come away better equipped to form your own informed perspective on it. Because honestly, this debate will shape humanity's future, no doubt about it.
Okay, so let's start by looking up. Humanity's always been fascinated by the sky, hasn't it? Forever. Gazing at stars, mapping constellations, wondering what's out there, it seems almost baked into us. And this dream of, settling other worlds, making a home somewhere else, it's not new. It's a recurring theme, a hope, maybe even an escape fantasy for some. But what's different now, and this is something the source material really highlights, is that it's moving out of science fiction. It's becoming, well, almost real. You see these huge rockets being built, and Mars is the destination everyone's talking about. Our source mentions some key players driving this. You've got Elon Musk, obviously, pushing this vision of humans becoming a multiplanetary species. He argues it's not just survival, but about expanding consciousness, becoming more than we are, spread across worlds.
Like Grand Vision.
Definitely. And then there's Jeff Bezos. His vision is maybe a bit different, talking about millions of people living and working in space, not just short trips, but actual communities, maybe in those giant orbital structures people have theorized about, using space resources.
Like O'Neill tellers, yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of concept.
Right. And it's not just the private sector. NASA's still very much in the game. The source mentioned their concrete plans for Mars missions in the coming decades. Robots first, sample returns, then boots on the ground. It's on their roadmap.
It's serious planning with serious budgets behind it.
Absolutely. So that ambition, that drive to push outwards, it does feel fundamental somehow, like a deep-seated urge to explore.
It does. There's this romantic, almost inevitable feeling about it sometimes,
Yeah.
like it's the necessary next step for humanity.
Yeah.
But, and this is the critical turn the source material takes immediately, it forces us to ask,
Yeah.
but at what cost? That's the pivot, isn't it? From the dream to the price tag. And it's not just financial.
Right. It's resources, it's focus, it's human
Yeah,
effort.
Precisely. And the financial cost is, well, it's staggering. The source emphasizes this. We're talking billions of dollars every year.
Yeah.
Billions flowing into space tech, R&D, building these massive rockets, the infrastructure. It's a colossal amount of money and, frankly, brainpower.
Which inevitably leads to that question the critics are asking, the one our source flags up.
Exactly. Should we be spending this money on rockets or on repairing our planet? It's stark when you put it like that. It's not just an accounting issue. It's a moral one. You have to weigh the immediate, desperate needs here on Earth. Climate action, poverty, basic health care, clean water, against these, long-term aspirational goals in space. The opportunity cost is huge.
What could that money do here?
Think about it. Even a fraction of those billions consistently applied. What could that achieve for clean water access globally? Or sustainable energy for communities that need it most? Or disaster relief? It makes the debate very, very real. It's about the future we choose to fund.
Okay, so let's flip the coin. Let's focus back firmly on Earth, which the source calls, quite simply, our only home. Because while we're dreaming of Mars, the crises here, they're not future threats. They're happening right now. They're accelerating.
And they demand attention, urgently.
The source paints a pretty grim picture, frankly. The impacts of climate change are impossible to ignore. We're seeing rising sea levels, not maybe, but actually happening, threatening coastal cities, displacing people, more extreme weather events. It feels like every season brings new records, right? Worse hurricanes, unbelievable heat waves, floods, devastating wildfires.
Drought spreading too.
Yes, widespread droughts hitting agriculture hard, causing food shortages, water crises, and the source mentions mass extinction. We're losing biodiversity at a terrifying rate, undermining the ecosystems we depend on.
It's a planet under enormous stress.
Immense stress. And it's not just environmental, is it? The human cost, the social challenges are just as stark. The source reminds us over 700 million people still live in extreme poverty, struggling for the absolute basics every single day.
It's hard to even comprehend that number sometimes.
It really is. And for so many more, access to clean water, food, and healthcare isn't a given. It's a daily struggle.
Basic necessities, things many of us take completely for granted.
Exactly. And that suffering, that inequality, it exists side by side with these incredibly ambitious, expensive space projects.
And that juxtaposition is exactly what the source material drives home so powerfully. It's unsettling. On one side, you've got the very real, very immediate suffering and planetary crisis here. Climate change, poverty, lack of basic needs, and on the other, those gleaming billion-dollar rockets soaring toward Mars.
It creates a real tension.
A profound moral tension, I'd say. It forces that difficult question. Are we trying to escape our responsibilities? Is this focus on the stars, however inspiring it might be, actually letting us off the hook, allowing us to look away from the hard, messy problems right here?
Is it easier to dream of Mars than to fix Earth?
That's the uncomfortable possibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it leads to an even sharper critique mentioned in the source. The idea that maybe this space race 2.0 is just another case of the wealthy building lifeboats while the rest are left to drown.
Oof, that's a powerful analogy.
It is, and it cuts deep because it touches on fairness, on equity. If space colonization ends up being an escape route or a resource grab for a tiny, privileged elite, while everyone else is left dealing with a worsening situation on Earth, then it's not progress for humanity, is it? It's potentially cementing a terrible divide.
A future where the rich go to Mars and the poor inherit a broken Earth.
It's a dystopian scenario, but one the critics argue we need to consider seriously. Whose future are we really building with these investments? Is it a future for all of humanity?
Which brings us to that quote the source highlighted, from the philosopher Dr. James Schwartz. It really stuck with me.
Which one was that?
He said, if we can't take care of one planet, what makes us think we'll do better with two?
Ah, yes. That one is hard. It's simple, but profound.
It really is. It challenges our whole narrative of progress, doesn't it? If our track record here is, well, let's be honest, mixed at best, with environmental damage, inequality, short-term thinking, what magic fairy dust are we expecting to acquire on the way to Mars that suddenly makes us better stewards?
It forces a kind of uncomfortable self-reflection. Have we actually earned the right, morally speaking, to expand, given how we've managed our first home?
Yeah, it implies we need to fix ourselves here before we export our problems elsewhere. It's a haunting question, as the source put it. Really makes you pause. Okay, but as you said, this isn't a one-sided issue. The source material is clear. There's another side to this whole debate. And the arguments for pushing into space are also compelling, aren't they? They often come from a place of, well, long-term thinking, existential thinking even.
Absolutely. It's not just dismissed as fantasy by proponents.
No. The core argument, as the source lays it out, is that this isn't escapism. It's presented as a necessary backup, a survival strategy for humanity.
The lifeboat argument, but framed differently, not for the few, but for the species.
Exactly. And the source points to Stephen Hawking's warnings here. He was very explicit about the dangers of staying on one planet. He talked about potential single catastrophic events. Things like, a massive asteroid impact or a runaway supervirus or even nuclear war.
Existential risks. X-risks.
Things that could genuinely wipe out humanity if we're all concentrated here. So from that perspective, space colonization becomes, well, insurance for the human race, spreading out so one disaster doesn't end everything.
It reframes it from a luxury to a necessity for long-term survival, diversifying the portfolio of human existence, essentially.
It's a powerful argument, hard to dismiss lightly.
And it's not just about avoiding disaster. There's another strong counter-argument to the waste of resources critique, which the source details quite well. It's the idea that the push into space actually generates technologies and knowledge that significantly benefit life on Earth. Tangible benefits right now.
The spin-offs argument.
Exactly. Think about satellites. We rely on them constantly. Our source mentions how they're vital for monitoring climate change, giving us essential data on ice melt, sea levels, deforestation,
GPS, weather forecasting,
communication, disaster monitoring. The list goes on. And then there are things like the water recycling technologies developed for space stations. Those aren't just sitting on the ISS. They're being adapted for use in disaster zones here on Earth, providing clean water where it's desperately needed. That's a direct, life-saving benefit.
That's a concrete example, yeah.
And looking ahead, the source brings up space-based solar power. Harnessing solar energy up there, where the sun always shines, and beaming it down. That has the potential to completely revolutionize our energy future. Clean, constant power. It could be transformative in combating climate change.
So the argument is that the investment isn't lost, it comes back in different valuable ways.
Precisely. Solving the hard problems of Space Force's innovation that has terrestrial applications. It's not an either or spend, it can be a virtuous cycle. And then there are the less tangible benefits, but maybe just as important, that the source touches upon.
Like what? The inspiration factor?
That's a big one. But also the idea that a grand project like space colonization could potentially unify humanity under a common goal. Imagine the kind of global cooperation required. It could theoretically help us overcome some of our terrestrial divisions. A shared purpose.
A shift in perspective, maybe. Seeing Earth from the outside.
Perhaps. And it undeniably pushes innovation across the board. Material science, computing, medicine, life support. The knock-on effects are huge. It inspires young people to go into STEM fields. It challenges us, pushes us to be better, smarter, more capable. The source mentions its power to inspire generations.
The Apollo effect, maybe, but on a grander scale.
Something like that. So when you add all that up, the survival insurance, the tech spinoffs, the unifying potential, the inspiration, the proponents argue it's not a waste at all. It's a crucial investment in humanity's future. A long-term play with potentially massive payoffs, both in space and right here.
It definitely makes you reconsider the simple waste of money argument. It's clearly more complex than that. So we have these incredibly strong arguments on both sides, the urgent needs of Earth versus the potential long-term benefits and imperatives of space. Which brings us back to that central question, so where do we draw the line? How do we navigate this?
And the source suggests, quite rightly I think, that framing it as space versus Earth is probably the wrong way to look at it. It's too simplistic.
A false dichotomy.
Exactly. The real challenge, as the material concludes, is finding a balance. It's about integration, not opposition. A very tricky tightrope walk.
How do we pursue the stars without abandoning the Earth?
Well, the source identifies where it becomes ethically dangerous. It's when investment in space becomes an excuse to ignore Earth's problems. That's the red line. If space becomes a shiny distraction that allows us to shrug off climate action or poverty reduction, then we failed. Morally failed.
So the motivation matters. Is it expanding human horizons, or is it running away from responsibility?
Precisely. And tied to that is the other major concern the source raises, worsening inequality. If this just becomes a private luxury, an escape pod for the super rich, while the majority are left on a struggling planet.
We talked about that lifeboat analogy.
Right. It risks creating an almost unimaginable gap between the spacefaring elite and the earthbound masses. That reinforces existing divides in the worst possible way. It raises fundamental questions about who benefits and whether this whole endeavor serves humanity or just a tiny fraction of it.
Which leads to these really difficult governance questions the source brings up. Questions we probably should have started asking sooner.
Like what specifically?
Like, should we have binding ethical frameworks before colonization begins? Not just technical rules, but actual ethical guidelines.
For resource use, for planetary protection, for potential life.
All of it. And related to that, this really deep question, should we treat Mars as sacred ground or just another resource to exploit?
Ooh, that's a big one. Does Mars have intrinsic value, or is it just raw materials for the taking?
It forces us to confront our own history, doesn't it? Our tendency to exploit first and ask questions later. Will we just repeat those patterns on another planet?
That's a crucial point, and it underlines what the source says next. Philosophy and policy must catch up to our rockets.
Our tech is outpacing our wisdom.
You could put it that way. We're building the how faster than we're figuring out the why and the should. We desperately need serious global deliberation on the ethics, the laws, the long-term governance before we establish permanent off-world settlements.
Get the rules of the road figured out before we start driving all over the place.
Exactly. Involving not just scientists and engineers, but ethicists, lawyers, sociologists, policymakers, everyone. Otherwise, we risk exporting our worst problems along with our people.
It's a call for foresight, really, to think before we leap too far. But okay, despite these serious ethical challenges, the source material doesn't end on a purely cautionary note. It actually offers a more hopeful path, right?
It does. It presents a vision for an integrated future, a synergy between Earth and space. It's quite compelling, actually.
Yeah, the ideal scenario it paints is, well, it's inspiring. It's a future where humanity manages to build sustainable colonies in space because we've learned to live sustainably on Earth.
The because is key there.
It really is. It implies we figure things out here first. We learn the lessons of ecological balance, resource management, social equity, and then we apply that wisdom to our off-world endeavors. So Mars isn't an escape pod from a ruined Earth.
No, it becomes a reflection of our evolution, a sign that we've matured as a species, learned from our mistakes.
A testament to our ability to achieve sustainability and cooperation both here and out there. That's a powerful vision.
And the source is clear. This is not science fiction. It's a possible future. It's achievable. But, and it's a big but, it doesn't happen automatically. It requires conscious effort and specific commitments.
What are the requirements?
The source lists 3 key things: a shared vision across the globe that values both Earth and space, real global cooperation, moving beyond competition, and crucially, accountability.
Accountability for what?
For ethical conduct, for transparency, for ensuring the benefits are shared widely, holding ourselves and our leaders to those principles. And to make that happen, the source outlines concrete steps. Things like ethical funding, ensuring space investment doesn't starve Earth-bound priorities, maybe even finding ways they can support each other.
Like space tech helping with climate solutions.
Exactly. It also calls for stronger global collaboration on both fronts, space projects, and tackling Earth's challenges together. Real partnership.
And prioritizing climate action alongside exploration.
Yes, that's critical. They have to go hand in hand. A stable Earth is the launchpad for everything else. Pursuing both concurrently, understanding their interdependence.
It's a holistic approach.
It is. Building a foundation for a responsible, synergistic future.
It makes that final quote from this section of the source feel really earned. The universe is vast, but our humanity must go with us wherever we travel.
That really sums it up, doesn't it?
It does. It's a reminder that the technology, the rockets, the destinations, they're secondary. What matters is who we are when we get there.
Are we bringing our best selves, our wisdom, empathy, sense of justice, or are we just carrying the same old baggage to new worlds?
If we lose our humanity along the way, what's the point of the journey? So as we wrap up this deep dive, it feels undeniable that we're at a significant moment, a genuine crossroads, as the source puts it. And this isn't just for the experts or the politicians. It feels like a question for all of us as a species. The choices we make now about where we put our energy, our resources, our hopes, they'll echo for a long, long time.
They absolutely will. And it brings us back to that core dilemma.
Yeah.
Should we colonize other planets while Earth suffers? But the source material, in its conclusion, pushes past that simple formulation. It asks something deeper, more challenging.
Which is?
Can we become the kind of civilization that earns the right to explore the stars by first healing the world we already have?
Earns the right. That phrasing is powerful.
It shifts the focus, doesn't it? From technical capability, can we go? To moral readiness, should we go? Have we demonstrated the maturity, the responsibility, the ethical grounding?
Have we done the work here first?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Have we healed our own world enough to be trusted with others?
And that's the thought we want to leave you, the listener, with today. What does it actually mean to earn the right to explore the cosmos? What kind of civilization do we need to become here on Earth first? What does healing our world look like? And maybe on a personal level, how do our own actions or choices contribute, even in small ways, to that healing process, to building a world that is ready, ethically and sustainably, for that next great leap, so that when we do reach for the stars, it's not as refugees from a broken home, but as mature explorers from a thriving one.
A profound challenge indeed, looking both inward and outward.
Definitely something to keep thinking about. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.